Next committee meeting to order. We do have a quorum with myself, Councilwoman Allen, Councilman Cortez, Councilman Druffel, Councilman Huffman, Councilwoman Porterfield, Councilman Spain, Councilwoman Swar, and Councilwoman Webb present. We do have folks that have signed up for public comment pursuant to Council Rule 28. The public comment period at committee meetings is limited to items that appear on the committee agenda. We do have 4 people who are signed up on the main list, and we do have 2 people who are on the waiting list. If there is time remaining, then we will get to the folks on the waiting list. But first we have, and if you could come to the podium in the back, Mr. Rob Bibby. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Speaking on item number 26 in support. Bailey, Briley. Oh. That is so terrible. Your handwriting is not the best. Anyway.
Don't tell my mother. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Rob Briley. I live here in Nashville, and I'm here to speak in favor of this bill. And I've got kind of 2 hats to wear today. One of them is to citizen Mr. Briley, and I've looked at the bill. I've looked at the amendment proposed by Councilman Taylor, and I think overall, on balance, this is a bill that moves Nashville in the right direction, and I'm in favor of it. With one special request. The Predators have done an excellent job of reaching out to the legacy groups, people that have an interest in what's going on at the Sportsplex. From that standpoint, there are 2 competing figure skating groups that are still vying for ice time with the Parks Department, and eventually I think that will be assumed by the Predators if in fact this bill passes. I'm here on behalf of City Skate Nashville and the Scott Hamilton Learn to Skate program, and we're looking for a home. Neither of these skating programs will have a permit with Parks effective January 1st of 2026. We're both asking the Parks Department to split the time at the Sportsplex, not necessarily evenly. We're not asking for more. We're not asking for the same, but we're asking to be treated fairly. And that would mean essentially 2 nights a week to run a Learn to Skate program with some time on Saturday. I would note that the Nashville Skating Academy on the other side of this argument already runs Learn to Skate programming at the Sportsplex and at Bellevue Ford Ice Center and at the Ford Ice Center in Antioch. So there's no shortage of Learn to Skate programs that they're running. I think what you heard from, if any of you here for the last committee meeting, what you heard from the representative of NSA is that they just don't want us around. They don't want us to be a Learn to Skate competitor because that makes their program more difficult. Well, we believe in competition. We believe that raises the bar for everyone, and it gives families and their children more choices in Nashville, and that's what we should be trying to do here. I would say that the Tennessee Constitution addresses this issue of monopolies, and I believe that there is one in Nashville right now in favor of the Nashville Skating Academy. It says that perpetuities of monopolies are contrary to the genius of a free state and should not be allowed. And on that note, I would just say that I appreciate your time and your service here tonight. Thank you.
Next on the list, we have Bill Farver speaking on item number 26 in support.
Thank you, ma'am. It seems we have 2 sides to this issue, and I've been up here before, hate to be redundant, but Nashville Skating Academy has run the program at Sportsplex for over 10 years. We've had a great relationship at the Sportsplex with the families, the participants, and Metro Parks has been supportive, as well as the Predators, of what Nashville Skating Academy has done. The fact that we are in 2 other rinks was actually had to do with TPH taking over programming and hiring Nashville Skating Academy because of the excellent work that we do. So that's just competition, and you do a better job, you often get better opportunities. Metro Parks is allocating the ice time based on the size of the programs and what it does to the current users of the facility. Right now, NSA has 1,000 skaters and 60 coaches partaking in programming at Centennial Sportsplex. Just disrupt that program, throws the whole apple cart off. This other program has 3 other rinks they're currently skating in. I don't see the need to also invade the program at Sportsplex. Thank you.
All right, next we have Mr. Mike Lacy speaking on item number 3 in opposition. You're recognized.
Hi. I'm really hoping that we can have a very careful, specific conversation about what's going on with this resolution. I just keep having extremely weird conversations about it. But so I want to put out very concretely what we know, which is that we have a document that shows that the state awarded the District Management Corporation, which is a 501c3, it's a specific entity, with $15 million. And we haven't seen any demonstration that something else needs to happen for them to get that money. And what we understand is that they will give it to the Nashville Downtown Partnership to do with an alignment with the grant. Then there is this resolution, which clearly, demonstrably, in English, moves the recipient to the Nashville Downtown Partnership, which is a 501c6, the different organization. And the difference to you is very important because the District Management Corporation, the person who currently has the grant award, you have 100% oversight of their budget. I'm going to say that again. The person who has been awarded this grant, you have 100% oversight of their budget. The organization that has it, if you want to put in restrictions into how they use it, you have 100% oversight of their budget. That's a fact, it's code. The Nashville Downtown Partnership, who, if this resolution is passed, regardless of any of these amendments, because none of them touch the actual resolution, the Nashville Downtown Partnership, the 501c6, same leadership, but there's a major distinction. You do not have oversight of their budget.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. All right, next we have Mr. Manning Hall speaking on item number 3 in opposition. You're recognized.
Please reject this MOU based on what happened when another city tried the exact same playbook. In May 2025, the Washington Post revealed that New Orleans police secretly used live facial recognition surveillance for 2 years through a private nonprofit called Project NOLA. They scanned city streets in real time, tracking over 30,000 people, making dozens of arrests, all without city council approval or public oversight. Here's how they did it. In 2022, New Orleans City Council banned facial recognition as a surveillance tool. The police didn't fight it. They just found a workaround. A private nonprofit with no formal city contract operated the cameras. When the system found matches, it sent alerts directly to officers. City officials claimed they weren't violating the ban because technically the city didn't own the cameras. It was just a nonprofit helping out. Nashville rejected FUSIS. You established surveillance oversight requirements and procurement rules. Now we're being asked to send $15 million flowing through the Nashville Downtown Partnership, a private nonprofit, to purchase or handle technology that MNPD handpicked, including LeoSite, a rebrand of similar technology sold by the same executive who signed those non-compliant FUSIS contracts with Chief Drake. Nashville rejected FUSIS. You established surveillance oversight requirements and procurement rules. Now we're being, okay, I'm reading the same fucking thing I wrote. Oh, I'm so sorry. I've reviewed the proposed amendment. It removes LeoSite by name, but keeps the exact same line, virtual command post software and threat identification software. This is cosmetic. It doesn't explain how these products got MMPD's list without competitive bidding, doesn't address the Mark Wood procurement violation, and doesn't require proper vendor evaluation going forward. New Orleans thought they solved facial recognition through policy, but routing surveillance through a nonprofit became the end around. When caught, they just kept going. This is the national playbook now. Atlanta's Police Foundation contracts directly with surveillance companies, operating over 12,800 cameras with minimal oversight.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Vote no.
We do have 46 seconds left, and we have 2 people on the waiting list. Unfortunately, we'll just be able to get to the first one, and that is Mr. Steve Ryder speaking on Resolution 2025-1659 in concern. You are recognized.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate some of the previous comments. I think if the money went to the police department in Nashville, that's a transaction that would be structured properly. This is just kind of a weird one. And so I am a little bit concerned. I don't know who is really going to have oversight over this. And I don't know, there's so many questions that everybody has. And so I understand the partnership claims that they have the money already. So why do you need to have an MOU? The contract is already signed and everything else. So your MOU or whatever else doesn't mean anything. So it's really kind of bizarre. That's not sort of a partnership that you want. You want to be able to go out there and have your concerns in the contract. And to my understanding, that's not the case here. So thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. That concludes our public comment period. All right, moving on to our consent agenda. I'm going to read the items that are on consent. If anything needs to come off, if you could raise your hand. On consent, Resolution 2025-1687, 1689, 1690, 1691, 1692, 1693, 1694, 1695, 1696, 1697, 1698, 1699, 1700, 1701, 1702, 1703, 1704, 1710, Bill 2025-1157, and Bill 2025-1158. Is there anything that needs to come off of consent? I am not seeing any hands, so I'm going to read the captions, which will give you another opportunity to pull items off consent if you need to. Starting with item number 6, Resolution 2025-1687, Toombs, Huffman, and Bradford, resolution accepting a grant from the Tennessee Corrections Institute to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through Davidson County Sheriff's Office to fund the purchase of recording equipment for the DCSO Training Academy. Resolution 2025-1689, Coopin, Toombs, Horton, and Hill, resolution to approve the 12th Amendment to the lease agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County and Square Investment Holdings, LLC for office space in the Washington Square building located at 222 2nd Avenue North. Resolution 2025-1690, Toombs, Vo, Welsh, and others, resolution accepting a grant from the Tennessee State Library and Archives to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Nashville Public Library to provide funding for general library services and to provide materials to persons having difficulty using the library and to the underserved in the Nashville-Davidson County area. Resolution 2025-1691, Toombs, Huffman, and Welsh, resolution approving Amendment 1 to an affiliation agreement by and between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health and Lipscomb University to provide the opportunity for students enrolled in various health professions to encounter a wide range of clinical experience opportunities. Resolution 2025-1692, Toombs, Huffman, Welsh, and others, resolution accepting a grant from the Friends of Metro Animal Care and Control to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide funding for various programs for shelter animals. Resolution 2025-1693, Toombs, Huffman, Welsh, and Gadd, resolution appropriating a total of $355,000 for the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Office of Homeless Services to the Contributor, Inc., and approving a grant agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Office of Homeless Services and the Contributor, Inc., to provide critical time intervention services to ensure that individuals experiencing homelessness are connected to supportive services that will address barriers to maintaining housing and achieving self-sufficiency. Resolution 2025-1694, Toombs, Huffman, and Gadd, resolution appropriating a total of $123,424 from the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Office of Homeless Services to Welcome Home Ministries and approving a grant agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Office of Homeless Services and Welcome Home Ministries to provide for the provision of recovery beds for individuals with substance abuse disorders who are experiencing homelessness. Resolution 2025-1695, Toombs, Huffman, and Welsh, resolution approving Amendment 1 to grant contracts with various nonprofit organizations to build the capacity of the Nashville-Davidson County Continuum of Care to address homelessness. Resolution 2025-1696, CAP, Toombs, Vo, and Welsh, and others, a resolution accepting an in-kind grant package from the Cumberland River Compact to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to fund improvements to the restroom in the Quonset Hut in Shelby Park. Resolution 2025-1697, Toombsville and Welsh, a resolution accepting an in-kind grant package from the Friends of Beaman Parks and the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to fund improvements to Beaman Park. Resolution 2025-1698, Toombs, Huffman, and Bradford, resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County by and through the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department and Dixon County by and through the Dixon County Sheriff's Office for the distribution of state grant funds to assist with investigations of internet crimes against children. Resolution 2025-1699, Toombs and Huffman, resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County by and through the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department and Williamson County by and through the Williamson County Sheriff's Office for the distribution of state grant funds to assist with investigations of internet crimes against children. Resolution 2025-1700, Toombs and Huffman, resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County by and through the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department and the City of Spring Hill, acting by and through the Spring Hill Police Department for the distribution of state grant funds to assist with investigations of internet crimes against children. Resolution 2025-1701, Toombs and Huffman, resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, by and through the Metropolitan and Nashville Police Department and the City of Cookeville, by and through the Cookeville Police Department for the distribution of state grant funds to assist with investigations of internet crimes against children. Resolution 2025-1702, Toombs, Huffman, Welsh, Gamble, and Gadd, resolution approving an agreement by and between Youth Villages, Inc. and the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department for in-home and parent skill-building programs for youth involved in the juvenile justice system. Resolution 2025-1703, Toombs and Evan Siegel, resolution approving Amendment 2 to a location agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County through the Department of Water and Sewerage Services and T-Mobile South, LLC. Resolution 2025-1704, Toombs and Evan Siegel, resolution amending Bill 2025-912 to approve a sponsored research agreement between Vanderbilt University and the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Department of Water and Sewerage Services. Resolution 2025-1710, Druffel, resolution requesting a mid-year budget update from the Department of Finance and the Mayor's Office. Item number 29, Bill 2025-1157, Gadd, Toombs, Horton, and others. Ordinance approving Greenway Conservation Easement Agreements between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation and Ingram Industries, Inc. for Greenway improvements at 4400 Hardin Pike. And item number 30, Bill 2025-1158, Horton, Druffel, Evans, Siegel, and others. Ordinance approving a Greenway Conservation Easement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation and BMTN Owner LLC for Greenway improvements at 4500 Harding Pike. Is there anything that needs to come off of consent? Councilwoman Suara.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 24, RS 2025-1710, please.
All right, item number 24, Resolution 2025-1710 is off of consent. Is there anything else that needs to come off of consent? Hearing none, can I get a motion? Is there a second? Is it properly moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Moving on to items that were not on consent. Can I do 1 and 2 together? Okay. All right, I'm gonna do items number 1 and 2. Do I need to read the caption? Items number 1 and 2 together. Resolution 2025-1533, Toombs, Huffman, Benton, and others. Resolution approving a Homeland Security Grant Program application from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Office of Emergency Management to fund efforts to prevent, prepare for, protect against, and respond to acts of terrorism and other catastrophic events. Item number 2, Resolution 2025-1534, Toombs, Huffman, Benton, and others. Resolution approving an Urban Area Security Initiative Grant application from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Office of Emergency Management to fund costs related to enhancing security and the resilience of high-risk urban areas by building, sustaining, and improving capabilities to prevent, prepare for, protect against, and respond to acts of terrorism. Both of those items are withdrawn. Moving on to item number 3, Resolution 2025-1659, Toombs, Huffman, and Johnson, a resolution approving a letter of agreement and memorandum of understanding between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County and the Nashville Downtown Partnership related to an application for the FY26 Downtown Public Safety Grant from the state of Tennessee. Can I get a motion? It's been properly moved and seconded. There are a couple of amendments. Amendment 1, if I can get an explanation of Amendment 1, either from Director Darby or the administration. Can I get someone to move the amendment to put it on the floor? It's been properly moved and seconded to recommend approval of Amendment number 1. You're the only person that's moving, Director Darby, can you explain what Amendment number 1 does?
The amendment number 1 replaces the agreement with a new attached MOU, and as attached to the amendment, it contains a couple of items that I'm aware of that have been changed that, excuse me, that Metro and NDP agree to follow all applicable federal, state, and local laws, including subsection 13.08.08 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, and
Yeah, they can't hear you.
you can't. Oh, sorry, never had that happen before. So one of the changes is that Metro and NDP agree to follow the applicable state, federal, and local laws, including the subsection 13.08.080 section of the Metro Code of Laws. And that's the primary thing that jumped out at me when I read this, and I know that Mr. Rosenberg might be able to identify some of the other amendments that were made to the agreement.
Mr. Rosenberg, you want to add to that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The revised MOU does several things in addition to what Ms. Darby mentioned. It also just brings current some of it, the language within it. It included some things that were in the past and no longer need to be listed in the MOU. For the potential uses, it lists who will be responsible for them so that it's clear that all the law enforcement related things will be performed by Metro, which also means that they would be subject to future council legislation in order to accept any of those uses. And also it removes the names of a couple pieces of software in there so that if it is something that council looks at approving in the future, they can find what's going to work for that functionality rather than having a single piece of software being named. Thank you.
All right, Councilwoman Porterfield.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I do have a question for the administration based on the explanation that we just heard. I forgot how it was phrased, but it was something along the lines of this being subjected to the current, the way the Metro is currently operating. I forgot how it was actually phrased, but I just want to clarify. So is that saying, I want to clarify that that is saying that if equipment is purchased prior to the city council voting to accept that agreement, accept that equipment, if that equipment is surveillance equipment, we will have to have a public hearing on that equipment. And I see a head nod from Director Darby, yes, but I would like to get a verbal on the record from administration and from our director.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With apologies, would you mind saying that again, please? Because I'm not as swift as Ms. Darby and didn't understand.
Okay. There was a comment that was made that this would put the agreement in line with the way that Metro is currently operating. And currently, if the council has any type of legislation around surveillance, that triggers a public hearing. So I want to confirm that this new MOU, prior to any surveillance software being accepted by the Metro Council, if the NDP buys surveillance software, that it will have to come before the Metro Council for the Metro Council to approve it, and there would have to be a public hearing prior to the Metro Council being able to consider approving the surveillance equipment.
Yes, this does not circumvent the public hearing provisions or council or Metro Code of laws in any way.
Thank you. And Director Darby, you gave me a head nod, but can I get a verbal for anybody that's not watching, that's just listening?
Yes, that is accurate.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to clarify that on December 15th at 6:40 p.m. for the timestamp. So if we need to come back and replay this for the receipts that y'all know I keep, December 15th at 6:40 p.m. Thank you.
Councilwoman Suara.
Thank you, Chair. The exhibit now takes out specific software, but it still has software in the list. Is that correct? Because I can't find it. Okay. And so that could be any software that the entity decides to buy in the future.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This would be done by Metro, so it would not be them doing it. It would be council approving, purchasing whatever software it is before it would be used by Metro.
Okay, so the approval of the MOU would be a blanket approval of software and whatever that, no, we're not approving the software until it comes to us, but it allows them to be able to buy and donate any kind of software, right?
I believe that they would end up donating the money for the software because it'd be hard, correct. It would not be restricted to two specific pieces of software that were in the original MOU, and then council would need to approve whatever it was.
Okay. And I think that at some point we may need someone from the other party to answer some of these questions, because I think some of my question may be something that the administration may not be able to answer directly. But before we move on, since we are amending that MOU as part of this amendment that we have, any reason why we did not change the entity that we are contracting with? And I say that in response to some of the comments that we've had. And I have an issue also that the entity that actually got the contract or got the award from the state is the Management Corporation. But the entity that we're actually doing the MOU with is NDP. And so since we're changing and this is brought forward, and that has been brought forward before, why are we not changing that? Is there any reason why not?
Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, because the money is going to sit with NDP because all money that goes to the DMC goes to the NDP, and all money that the NDP has is from the DMC. Same group, different corporate structures. So since the NDP is the only organization that does work and is the one who we would be coordinating with, it's with them.
Does it matter that it's different kind of organization in terms of its structure and in terms of the oversight that council has? So why not just do the contract with the Management Corporation directly, the one that we control and the one that we have oversight over? Does it change anything to do that?
Because that organization will not have any money or functions that they're performing under this grant.
But they're the one that got the money, though.
But the money goes to NDP. So with NDP having the money, that's the organization that we will be working with.
I'm trying to state this in a different way, Mr. Rosenberg, and I think you got what I'm saying. DMC got the money, right? And DMC is the one that we agreed to apply for, so we don't apply. And so is there anything wrong? Again, I understand how we decide to do it now, but is there anything wrong with us actually contracting with the DMC directly?
I think that would leave out the organization that's involved with the grant, where the money is going to be and who's going to be performing functions under it.
All right. Can I have somebody from, legal, yes. Thank you. Ms. Darby or anyone in legal? Is there anything stopping us from contracting with DMC directly?
Well, I mean, one thing is that we already have an agreement, an MOU in front of us with the NDP. Sorry, the acronyms are so close together, I confuse them a lot, with the NDP. I think it's worth noting that the NDP is the operator for the District Management Corporation. They contract with one another, so everything that the District Management Corporation does, it does through the NDP.
So then it wouldn't have made any difference if we do the DMC because NDP would do it anyway. Is that what you're saying? And is the answer that we under this, how this is structured, the way the grant is, we can never do a contract, or we're not allowed to do contract directly with DMC? I'm just trying to.
No, I don't think that there's a prohibition against Metro contracting with the DMC.
Okay, so there's no prohibition, even though NDP will carry it out because basically they're the same entity and either one of them could do it. So if we decide that we want to do it with the one that we have actual control over, there's nothing stopping us from doing that. Wanted to get that.
There's nothing prohibiting Metro from contracting with the District Management Corporation.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then if there's somebody from the District Management Corporation.
If you could introduce yourself and then let Councilwoman Sara ask her question.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ben Simpson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Nashville Downtown Partnership and am also employed by the NDMC.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for being here. There have been a couple of questions that I've tried to ask, but I think I never got the answers to because I'm not speaking with the right entity or asking the right people. And one of them I think we asked last time, and I think I also asked the administration, but I still don't have clarity. So let's assume that this software that we now have as just software is listed, right, on this grant. In my looking at the award document, I see that this grant could be used for a number of things. One of them is surveillance, but the other thing is renovation, for example. So if at a point that there needs to be an amendment or if there's a choice, can the DMC or NDP, who has the right to make changes to this grant, if they want to change how the money is spent, who will have that authorization? Is it NDP or is it DMC?
So I think I'll try and attempt to answer the question that Ms. Darby and Mr. Rosenberg answered. The reason we believe that the MOU was with the NDP is because that's the organization that will be doing the work. Therefore, you would want to bind the entity doing the work. And we believe that's what the MOU does. So the entity doing the work would be bound by the MOU to spend the money in the way that the MOU stipulates. In terms of software, I think we've been pretty clear. There are only 3 things that NDP within this grant will be doing, and that is the lighting, helping build out that NDOT facility, and of course, outreach. Where the restrooms are concerned, we will definitely be in partnership with Metro to get those where they need to go in the appropriate way. I don't have more clarity on the restrooms because we don't know where we're going to put them yet. We would want input from our stakeholders downtown, from constituents downtown, from businesses downtown, from the Parks Department, all of those different entities that go in there. I'll try and answer the question and summarize in this way. We are here with a contract that has been awarded so that we can bind and be a good partner both to this council and this administration and Metro government as a whole. So we're trying to do that with this document.
So because they're 2 separate entities, you all would need to have an agreement with NDP to do this work. It's not an automatic thing, is it?
The money would go from the NDMC to the NDP to do the work. The reason you would bind the NDP is because that's the entity doing the work.
And in terms of, again, I come back to the question that I asked in addition to you answering the one that Mr. Rosenberg was answering in terms of changes to this grant and making any alterations to it. Who gets to do that? That would be the DMC and DMC.
So any change to the grant would have to be approved by our partners at the state because they're the grantor. So what we would do, any change to the grant, we would work with our partners either at Metro or with the council or the NDMC to make that change. As I have said at this podium before, any surveillance equipment would be gone to the MNPD, and we don't believe that any of that equipment works unless there's enforcement behind it. So as non-law enforcement, non-post certified officers, we wouldn't have a use for that. That would go to the MNPD. And if it's easier to do that in terms of dollars, that would be the way we would go about it.
Okay. I'll ask one last question and then I'll maybe come back to me later. In looking at the grant document, you do have the authorization to change your budget line up to 20%. But what I'm getting from you now is that there will be no changes to any spending, any category, without it coming to us first. Is that what you're saying?
So I would love to be able to bind my organization, this council, and the mayor's office by answering from this podium, but I don't think I have that authority. So what I can say is we are responsible as the grantee to meet metrics that are put forth by the grantor. We can't do that without partnership. And I think good partnership looks like what we're doing, and that's putting forth an MOU to this council with our partners so that you can limit those uses.
Okay, thank you. And I'll tell you why I'm so confused. I was reading the fiscal analysis last night, and it kept saying that the NDP is applying for, the NDP is getting the money, and those language is still there. And I'm looking at who is responsible for what in terms of to Metro, to the state government, and it's still massive. There's still all of this muddled up together. So I just want to get some things in writing, on record, because it's still not, it gives the appearance of trying to circumvent, especially when there's the allegation of different entities, different control system. That may not be the intent, but that is the appearance that it gives. And so that's the reason for that line of questioning. I still think that if we want to do this and we are not prohibited from having an agreement with the entity that got the grant, which is the one that we said we will work with, which the grant says you should have a letter of agreement with that entity according to the grant document, I see no reason why we're still going through NDP, especially if we're not prohibited from doing so. So I wanted to put that on record. Thank you. And I would be a no on the amendment because software by itself is just very ambiguous to me, and it means so many different things, and I'm still not comfortable with that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sora. Councilman Coopin, and then I saw Councilwoman Porterfield next. Oh, sorry. You need a mic.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple questions directed at whoever wants to take them. So I'm looking at the letter of intent, and it looks to be that the mayor and Metro says 0%, the Nashville DMC is 0%, and the downtown partnership is 100% of who's going to apply for the grant. So it would seem to me that then the downtown partnership would have been the one to apply for the grant, but then the grant application has the NDMC as the grant application. So how do we reconcile those two documents that don't seem to line up? Or that's legal or administration?
Is that a Darby question? Director Darby.
I would happily turn this over to the administration, but because I feel like everything I'm about to say is pretty speculative since I was not involved in any of these documents on the front end. But I believe that the application was made to the state to receive the funding, and as part of that, at some point, we have to show that we have to sign this letter of agreement between the three entities that are eligible to receive the grant funding from the state. That letter is a state mandated letter. It's a form letter. There's no real, there's not a lot of information that goes into the letter other than the signature lines. And I would, and this is where I'm going to start guessing, I would guess that by the time they filled out the letter, they knew that the Nashville Downtown Partnership was going to be the recipient, the ultimate recipient of the funds. So that's that, but that's speculation on my part, so I welcome anyone to chime in.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember, that's an agreement between another entity in the state. I don't know what the nature of those naming of organizations was.
Perhaps Mr. Simpson can answer regarding the actual grant applicant you recognized.
It's a great question. The answer is we followed the guidance we were given by the state. That was the guidance we were given by the state, and we were lucky enough to be awarded the full amount.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And just to get back on the record, because I know this conversation has come up before, but if the MOU were to not pass, my understanding, but correct me if I'm wrong, is would the funding then go to NDP and then NDP could do with it what they wanted? Is that what would happen if it didn't pass?
Director Darby?
I believe
Time to
that's what would
withdraw?
happen if the funding would, if the MOU wasn't passed, the funding would go to the downtown partnership, perhaps funneled through the DMC to the downtown partnership, and then the limitations that are in the MOU would not be placed on the downtown partnership.
And how are the items decided on as far as, it's pretty wide swath of choices and menu items. How are the items decided on that became part of the Exhibit A?
Mr. Rosenberg?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council member, there were conversations between Metro departments identifying Metro priorities and with NDP about their priorities and shared priorities.
Thank you. Chair, at some point I've got an amendment I'd like to move, but I don't want to move it yet because we're discussing this piece, but just wanted to keep that flag.
Yeah, we're still on the first one. Once we wrap up with this one, then
thanks.
we'll move on to you. All right. Councilwoman Porterfield, I see you with your hand up. Councilman Cortez, I'll come to you next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have three quick questions. My first question is with regards to Councilmember Soares' question about the difference between the entities named in the MOU. Is there anything, would there be any benefits, or is there anything prohibiting all three entities being named in the MOU? So Metro, NDP, and then the umbrella org, is it DMC? NDMC, Run DMC, all the letters.
Director Darby? Or is that a Metro legal question? Or Mr. Rosenberg question?
Madam Chair, happy to take a swing. I don't understand what benefit there is since the performance and the things being bound are things that only apply to NDP and Metro, but I don't know the answer to the hypothetical.
Let me ask it in a different way. Would it hurt or prohibit to name both entities? And I think that the benefit would be to the community for increased transparency, since what's the letters in MDC? DMC. So if we have more oversight over that entity, and if there are concerns about transparency, if we have the MOU with both entities, then I would think that accomplishes what the administration and the NDP are trying to do, but then that also adds a level of transparency for the public as well as oversight for the council. So would it hurt anything to have all three entities? And if it'll hurt something, that's okay. I'm curious to know if it will hurt anything.
I don't know if it would hurt anything. It wouldn't increase transparency, though, because they're not performing anything in the MOU.
I would say Madam Chair, I would say increased transparency in the, so we've gotten some constituent concerns about it. So I think that it would just increase transparency by explicitly naming that is the entity that the grant was awarded to, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Seems like there's not really an answer.
Okay. Can Metro Legal opine on it?
Can Metro Legal opine?
Macy Amos from Metro Legal. I don't have anything further than what Mr. Rosenberg has already.
Who wrote the MOU? Shared. Can we get the answer from the person that wrote the MOU? I mean, like, somebody had to write it, so can the folks who wrote it?
Our office wrote it in consultation with legal, but the decision about which entity to write it with was with the entity that we would be entering an agreement with to limit the uses.
Between now and tomorrow, can the two entities have a conversation with Metro Legal, and can we get an answer by tomorrow if it will hurt anything to include the third entity? I don't have to have an answer right now, but if I can have an answer by tomorrow, that'll be helpful.
Question. Mr. Simpson, do you have a?
So I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney, so I cannot give you legal advice. That being said, the entity with the funding is the NDP. That's why you're trying to bind the entity with the funding, because the entity with the funding will be doing the work, and that would be the entity you would want to bind. A superfluous party to a contract would have to go through some sort of legal review, I would assume, on Metro's side, because that party to the contract wouldn't have any performance, and you would need to have some performance from every party to the contract, I would think, to have a legal binding document. But again, not your attorney, so don't take legal advice from me.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I would, if nothing else, they're getting the money and funneling it to another organization, so that could be their portion of it. Whatever, if I could just get an answer for that by tomorrow, like, this is really frustrating when nobody can answer our questions, and I get that we're coming up with these questions on the spot as we're hearing them, but somebody somewhere, with all the attorneys that we have, somebody should be able to answer these legal questions. My second question is, what happens if there is a deferral? My understanding is that NDP can, I don't know. I don't want to make an assumption. So what happens if there's a deferral? Will NDP be able to make purchases? If we defer it one meeting, which would then be, I think, around January 20th or so when we come back for our next council meeting, will that allow NDP to move forward with purchases, or would they have to wait until we take up the MOU?
Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council member, they would be able to spend the money as they see fit within the bounds of the grant, absent an MOU.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is, if the administration would be amenable to an amendment removing all software from the MOU.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council member, we actually had conversations today with one of your colleagues about an amendment that replaces software with end user computer hardware, laptops, desktops, and that sort of thing. And my understanding is it will be filed and we would be supportive.
Okay, thank you. So with the knowledge of a late filed amendment coming that the administration is supportive on, would we need to vote on Councilmember Toombs? Will we need to look at Councilmember, will there be a conflict with Councilmember Toombs' amendment and the late filed amendment that will be coming? Like, will there be any conflict between the two? Will the new amendment have everything from Councilmember Toombs and then this addition, or are they going to be separate?
Director Darby.
We're in the process of, we will be in the process of drafting the amendment to work with the other amendment if needed.
Okay. All right, well, with that being said, I am going to, for the sake of transparency, I am going to vote for the Toombs amendment today with the expectation of a late filed amendment tomorrow, and I will base my votes on tomorrow contingent upon the late filed amendment tomorrow. So this is not a commitment to the MOU as it stands. This is for the sake of moving forward for us to get to our late file tomorrow.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilman Cortez.
Thank you, Chair. Councilwoman Porterfield actually asked my question, and I do want to say I completely understand her concern with public trust. I had similar conversations with constituents, so I do know, I understand the legal kickback, even though I'm not an attorney myself, that maybe it not be binding, but I do think there is a level of transparency that would bring to the public and a level of ease if we were able to add the Run DMC, whatever the heck the acronym was, to the agreement. So I just want to say thank you for asking the question, and I do agree with the public trust piece of that.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Coopin, and I think you're the last person, and we're going to have a vote on amendment number 1. Councilmember Coopin.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. My district is very excited about noise cameras, given the disruption they cause. In fact, earlier while we were sitting here, there was a loud car driving by. What needs to happen? Previously, we heard that the noise cameras were not legally enabled in Metro Nashville. What would need to happen for those to be legally used here on our right-of-way?
Director Darby?
I think at the last meeting, the question was really around not whether they're legally enabled. I think the question was about who would be putting the cameras in the right of way. You can't, a private citizen can't put cameras in the right of way like that. Metro can. If Metro were to go that route, 13.08.080 of the Metropolitan Code would kick in, which would require a public hearing. So we would hear from the public prior to placing or installing that type of camera into the public right of way. If that camera is considered surveillance technology, which I think it might be, but I haven't looked at that closely.
Thank you. So noise sensing cameras could be installed in the right-of-way subject to a public hearing and council action.
Yes, and only installed in the right of way by the government.
Thank you.
All right, Councilman Cortez.
Real quick, I forgot I had this question about noise cameras, and this may be for the MNPD. Researching it, looks like the noise cameras use a still image whenever they're activated. Do they have the ability to be transitioned over to actual film, like video imaging, or are they just strictly still image and that cannot be changed?
Deputy Chief, if you can introduce yourself and you have the floor.
Sure. Chris Gilder, Metro Police Department. Honestly, I've not used the technology. I don't know that we would necessarily need video. It's basically just I need to be able to capture an image of the vehicle, the tag, so that I know who to cite for the noise violation.
So we don't know if they are video capable?
I would have to research them a little bit more. I know they're in use in Knoxville. I haven't looked into that particular question, though, but I'm happy to try to learn the answer to that and get back with you.
That'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any additional discussion on Amendment 1? Hearing none. All those in favor, I don't know if I'm gonna have any no's. Aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Not voting? Oh, who was that? Oh. I didn't see the little deep. All right. Vice Chair Spain is going to take over the meeting. Y'all have a good evening.
Hi, y'all. You look a little different from up here than you do from the back row. Let's see. All right. All right. Councilman Coopin, you have amendment number 2. How do you work this thing? There you are. Go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So would love for someone on the committee to move and support Amendment 2. So what I tried to do is codify, I know we've had a number of documents sent to us and placed on our desks and conversations around who's acting in what capacity and what money is being spent where. And so this kind of walks us through who applied for the grant, what the capacities were, and then what is currently intended, what the money is currently intended to go to, what the NDP would intend to own and operate, what would be intended to be gifted to Metro, what would be gifted to Metro and the NDP operates, what's gifted to Metro to operate, et cetera. So that's all kind of spelled out there. I also added there because there were certain things that were not included that I do wish were, and I have a number of stakeholders that wish were, things like One Box and Red Frogs and Safe Bar, which are programs that we support through our Office of Nightlife that are working well and saving countless lives downtown every single day. So this just, again, kind of, it amends the recitals. It doesn't amend the MOU itself, but spells out, I think, better where we came from, where we're going, and codifies that together. And then also, just real quick, it also very clearly states that surveillance technology would be subject to 1308.080 for a public hearing.
Thank you, Councilman Coopin. Is there a motion on amendment number 2? Second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on amendment number 2? If not, we'll take a vote. All in favor, aye. All opposed, no. Anyone not voting? 8. Amendment 2 passes 8 in favor, none against, 0 not voting. We are back on the bill as amended. Do we need another motion? We get a motion on the bill as amended. Motion and a second. Any discussion on the bill? Councilmember Porterfield, let me find you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I am going to abstain on this today until we get the amendment tomorrow. And once we take up and address the amendment tomorrow, I will make my determination of how I'm going to vote. But I just wanted to explain that abstention for today.
Further discussion? All right, if not, we will go to a vote. We'll try it with voice vote. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no? And those not voting? 2, so 6. 6 in favor, none against, 2 not voting. We approve. And we'll move on to our next item is number 4, RS 2025-1660, an initial resolution determining to issue general obligation bonds of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County in an aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $531,925,000, sponsored by Chair Toombs, and I will need to sign on as a sponsor as well. And can I get a motion? Motion and a second. Let's see, we have 3 amendments. The first 2 are by Councilmember Stiles. Councilmember Stiles, would you like to move your amendments? Sorry, there you go.
Thank you very much. Yes, I would please. I'd like to give a brief
I'm sorry, yes. Will a member of the committee make a motion on Councilmember's motion and a second? Sorry, go ahead, Councilmember Stiles.
I would like to move for approval of my amendments with a brief comment, if I may.
Go ahead, ma'am.
So the first amendment is removing $7 million from the money that we are proposing to allocate to the new Department of Emergency Communications and OEM building. It's no secret that our DEC department is on fire. It feels like a reward, putting money aside to give a new structure when the interior of a department is so horribly managed. I don't have an issue with giving money to OEM or towards this project, but the full 18 million, I don't agree with. The Global Malls had pitiful investment, if really at all, since this administration came in, and my constituents are asking what happened to the movement of the mall. And so I was told by Bob Mendez before he left that the cost of an infrastructure study, which is required in order to do something on this site, was going to be $4 to $7 million. That has not been allocated in this CSP, and therefore I think the residents of Antioch deserve to have some investment, and if we don't do it now, then there'll be more excuses as to why investment is not made. So I understand that we need to, as a city, invest in our infrastructure. We have been woefully behind for quite some time. But at this juncture, if we wanted to split that money in half, Chief Swan seems to have things under control, but Steve Martini definitely doesn't. So I don't feel comfortable allocating that money. And I think this is the worthy investment. I know there's been some disagreement as to whether the investment should have been made in purchasing the mall, but we're past that. That ship has sailed. And at this point, we do own it, and there's a whole community that's waiting. And One Transit Center is part of the entire project. It is not the sole project. So when I get asked, what would I like to see at the transit center, I'm not interested unless it has the complete project involved. So I would love support on the $7 million so I can get this study done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stiles. Is there discussion on amendment number 1? Yes, we had a motion and a second. Discussion. Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Chair. Can we hear from the administration on why this was not included already, as well as the impact of removing it from its current location?
Mr. Rosenberg. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilmember, I'm happy to answer, but would also defer to the departments on specific impacts there. As far as where the money would be going, it's unclear where $7 million would go. There's not a currently identified project queued up with that. The $750,000 in the CSP is for infrastructure planning that's needed before any further investment. There is definitely a clear need and use for our Emergency Operations Center, which is critically important. General Services and ITS can speak to things, as well as our 911 center. Can I defer to Fire to start?
Absolutely. Anyone from Fire want to address this?
Thank you, Chair. Mark Young, National Fire and OEM. You know, Councilor Stiles has always been a supporter of the OEM department, fire department. She mentioned something in her comments just now. However, with this $7 million that would be pulled from the project of the ECC OEM combined building, that represents about 37%. I believe it's 37% of the 39% of the total cost of the project. So that pretty much right there kills the project. And we don't need that. We're in a situation at the moment where a lot of our OEM logistics, OEM equipment, our fleet, we're in a place that's the property at the old Genesco property at Murfreesboro Road that is subject to probably any day of a notice of it's time to start looking for some property because the B&A expansion. Not only that, it's time for an upgraded emergency communications building and the OEM. We have dispatchers inside that building also that dispatch all over the city, not only fire, it's water, police, NES, anything major in this city. Our OEM dispatchers are there to dispatch that equipment. We just can't support the reduction in the funding for the facility just because of the key infrastructure for this city that this new facility is going to provide is just something that's been needed for years, and we would ask that not support the reduction in the funding here. We very much need this facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Porterfield. Councilmember Stiles.
Thank you very much again, and thank you very much. Yes, Mark, you already know I am very supportive of the fire department. They are currently at the mall, and while they're at the mall, we can't do anything at the mall to move the community plan forward. And I have a lot of respect for the fire department, so I didn't have pushback on that. However, the investment is needed in the totality of that site. We need a new OEM building. Don't disagree with that. However, it should not be either or, it should really be both and. And there is a huge discrepancy between 4 to 7 million and 750,000. So how did the chief development officer come up with that number and suddenly we're getting the pittance of $750,000? That doesn't make any sense. I'd love to hear from someone up front that can make that make sense. So did Mr. Mendez make a mistake in his calculations, or is someone making a mistake in calculations now? So I guess that's a question that I would have currently.
Does anyone from the administration want to address that? Mr. Rosenberg? Sorry, gotcha. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember. I would have to see what Mr. Mendez actually said to opine on it. Thank you.
Councilmember Stiles.
And if I may, in the CSP, it references the infrastructure, site planning, and design, that money, the $7 million was going to that. So he referenced 4 to 7 million for an infrastructure study, but that would allow for some other funding to move on the designs for the other aspects of the site. There is artist housing, the Performing Arts Center. There's also offices. There is interest in the bottom of the Bridgestone building, which can't move forward until the building is finally clear. So it does say that in the CSP amendment. So it's not just a blank. We have no idea what's being asked for. So again, I would ask colleagues, I know this is a very unique request, and it feels like substituting major infrastructure for another community need. But the reality is yes, we are behind, but we can't double up in one area and neglect another area that we have made an investment in. And if this infrastructure study does not get done, the community site plan that was completed in 2023 does not move forward either. And I don't think it's right to the constituents of Antioch to make them suffer for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Stiles. Further discussion. I will say that I don't think I can support this amendment, and it has nothing to do with how deserving the project at Global Mall is. Many of us have toured the facilities at OEM, and they're very much in need of replacement and have been for a long time, regardless of management or staffing or anything else. That facility is desperately in need of replacement to continue its ability to serve our constituents. Any other comments? Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I want to see, as a resident of Antioch, I want to see the Global Mall project advance and move forward. So I want to just kind of get that on the record, that is something that I am interested in seeing going forward. I was trying to refresh my memory. I just asked Councilmember Benedict a question about something that happened last term where Councilmember Benedict was bringing something that was an amendment to the CIB, and I remember a really robust conversation that happened during that period of time in which we did not support that because it went outside of the process of how we do our CIBs. And if, every district has very well-deserving projects, and if we go outside of the process that we have for getting the CIB in place, then, there's just not the ability for us to do this for every well-deserving project to be amended and put into the CIB. So unfortunately, I will not be supporting any of the 3 amendments. But again, I would like to see progress on the Global Mall project going forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Porterfield. Further discussion. Councilmember Stiles.
Yes, if I could get an answer to the question that I asked, the huge discrepancy between the $750,000 that's there now versus what the former Chief Development Officer said the cost of this study was going to be. How did we determine the difference?
Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council member, the $750,000 figure in the CSP came from Mr. Mendez.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilmember Stiles.
Okay, I'm very confused as I have the email where he gave the cost. So I guess I feel similarly to some of the questions that were coming on a different issue earlier. It is very unclear coming from this administration what things are costing. And if this is going, how do you go from $750,000? And Mr. Rosenberg, can you explain to me what the $750,000 covers? Did Mr. Mendez leave that with you?
Mr. Rosenberg, and then we've got a long way to go, so we'll try to wrap this up.
I'm happy to ask, but this is just the infrastructure planning that will determine next steps in future spending.
All right, anyone else on amendment number 1? If not, let's take a vote. All in favor, aye. Opposed, no? No? Any not voting? All right, that was 0 in favor, 8 against, and 0 not voting. Amendment number 2, Councilmember Stiles. Would anyone like to move amendment number 2? Motion and a second. Councilmember Stiles.
Thank you again. This would also take money away from the Department of Emergency Communications, but this going towards the Metro Animal Care and Control, towards that project. There was some money set aside for design, but oftentimes design money is a form of just placating people, and more time goes by. I think we established last term that our MAC facility is in dire need of replacement, and so I would like to add more funding so we could get that process going.
Thank you, Councilmember Stiles. I won't be able to support this amendment either for the same reason as the previous one. I wholly agree about the need for MAC, but just can't support taking it away from OEM at this point. Other comments? If not, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, aye. Opposed, no? No. Any not voting? All right, 0 in favor, 8 against, 0 not voting. We have one more amendment by Councilmember Bradford, who's not here. Does anyone want to move that amendment? Moved by Councilmember Porterfield. Is there a second? Second. Any? Director Darby, can you tell us what amendment number 3 does?
Amendment number 3 would move $5 million from the East Bank Infrastructure and Grid project and add that $5 million to a new Murfreesboro Road Briley Parkway Library project.
Any discussion on amendment number 3? Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you. Would love to see that project moving forward. I won't be able to support it for the reason that I said earlier, but I wanted to move the amendment so that we could at least have the conversation, even though our colleague is not here. I felt that it was important that we at least get it on the record so that it could be discussed if anyone wants to discuss it. Would love to see that project move forward, just won't be able to support it today.
Thank you, Councilman Porterfield. Further comments? If not, all in favor of amendment number 3, say aye. Wave that one off. Opposed, no? No. Any not voting? All right, 0 in favor, 8 against, 0 not voting on amendment number 3. So we're back on the bill. Any discussion? Thank you. Motion and a second. Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Chair, especially since I'm not on the committee. I wanted to make a comment. This year's CSP lacks one important item for the Madison community and District 3, District 9, and District 7 residents who live within walking distance of Madison Station. They continue to hope that we'll be able to fund a new park. Former council member Van Reese has worked diligently to get this park. And I just want to say that her efforts haven't gone unnoticed, including her comments at the last council meeting. And she's right, we need this park. The mayor knows that too. And, but like prior years, we just haven't been able to find the $8 million to fund this. I think much like all of us have things in our district that we want to get done. Unfortunately, by the time we get to this point, it's pretty hard for us to find the room in the budget because of other competing priorities, within the city. The needs, of course, are tremendous. And, as much as all of us want this park for Madisonians, we simply can't get it done this year. So I want to personally thank everybody who's been involved in the community. I want to thank the mayor, council members Gamble and Hancock, and of course, Nancy Van Reese. We're all committed to getting this park built just as soon as we can. I wish we could get it in this year, but we can't. And again, thank you everybody for your efforts to try to get us there. Thank you, Chair, or Vice Chair.
Thank you. Further comments? All right, if not, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? All right, you recommend approval, 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. We will go to item number 5, RS 2025-1661, a resolution reducing the authority of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to issue general obligation bonds pursuant to certain initial resolutions previously adopted by the Metropolitan County Council, sponsored by Chair Toombs. I will sign on as well. Can I get a motion? A motion and a second. Is there discussion? Councilmember Gamble.
Thank you, Vice Chair. If Director Darby could give us kind of what the impact is of this, or someone from finance, that would be great. Thank you.
Someone from finance want to take that one? There's a conference on the mound. Stand by.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Aaron Pratt, Budget Officer. These were previously issued, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, first of all?
Thank you. Just what is the impact of reducing the authority? How is it being reduced and what is the impact? If you could talk about that.
Thank you. The impact is positive because these were previously issued bonds in previous years that are not going to be spent, so it actually lowers the amount of the total issuance and allows us to reinvest those funds.
Great. Thank you so much.
Other questions? Director Pratt, is that reinvestment of those funds reflected in the resolution we just adopted, or will that be done at a later date?
No, this is reflected in the resolution that was just adopted.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion? All right, if not, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? All right, recommend approval, 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. That takes us to item number 7, RS 2025-1688, a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the claims of Lonesome 10 Miles LLC against the Metropolitan government in the amount of $767,500, with $600,000 to be paid from the Metro Water Services Budget Fund 47410 and $167,500 to be paid from the Judgments and Losses Fund. Sponsored by Chair Toombs. I will sign on as well. Can I get a motion? Motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilmember Suara.
Thank you. I know that we cannot tell legal how to do its job, and I know that we learned a lesson a while back, but I'm just curious with this particular one. I understand the premise for it, but what I don't understand is that we're reimbursing the full amounts that was charged this organization. Were they not supposed to pay anything at all? And why did we not just do the difference instead of giving them everything that they paid, even though we give them the wrong information? I was just trying to understand how we came to that amount of what they actually paid, when if they had paid the correct amount, we would still be owed something. So how did that work out?
Legal.
So Melissa Roberge from Legal. We are paying the reimbursement costs for how to upgrade the line. The line didn't need to be upgraded, and so that's the difference. It's not that if it needed to be upgraded and cost one amount and that there's some difference we could go to. In this case, there was just an honest breakdown in communication that rarely happens. We went back 10 years, and this has never happened before, where the line didn't need to, there wasn't a requirement for the upgrade. Of course.
Councilmember Suara. Further questions? Councilmember Allen.
So in the line of needing master plans for growth and stuff like that, somewhere down the line, there will be additional capacity that will benefit from this. Is there no way to take that into account? That, I mean, you know, if we had a better mechanism, we would let everybody pay a little bit so that would be there when we need it. And yet we're bearing the full cost of a lack of communication. It sounds to me like on the part of the owner, it sounded to me like Metro communicated plenty of times and simply wasn't answered back to.
I think there was a breakdown in communication.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Melissa Roberge again. There was just some miscommunications on both sides with whether or not the line had to be upgraded. So I appreciate the point that at some point it may need to be upgraded, but we can't, we're required to look at, does this project require the upgrade? Everybody paying a little bit is a different analysis. For purposes of this claim, there has to be a nexus between what we're asking them to do and their project, and here, there just wasn't.
Understood. Okay, thank you for that explanation.
And by mistake, I just want to make that clear. It was an honest mistake. It wasn't intentional.
Councilman Cortez.
Thank you, Chair. They rejected the first settlement, is my understanding. Is there a concern that they're going to reject this as well, or do you feel if this is approved that this will put the matter to rest?
We have an agreement on this. They rejected the first settlement because of the difference in replacement cost, and we, through discovery, realized that their replacement costs were reasonable, and this is a result of a mediator's proposal that both sides accepted.
Yeah, thank you.
Further questions? All right, if not, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? All right, recommend approval, 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Let's see, that brings us to item 24. RS 2025-1710, a resolution requesting a mid-year budget update from the Department of Finance and the Mayor's Office, sponsored by Councilman Druffel. Can I get a motion? Moved and seconded. Councilmember Druffel, I will go to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This is meant to be an interim step to reflect on how far we're doing after the budget. A lot of times we get into the budget after 6 years. I've noticed that we get into the weeds pretty quickly, and this gives us a chance to start to get a summary understanding before we get into some of the detail and understand the economic turns. How's our revenue coming out? Where's our debt going? It just gives us a good chance to reflect on things before we get into the budget.
Thank you, Councilmember Druffel. Councilmember Suara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just wanted to add that I'm in support of it. I think it's a good ask, but I wanted to, on record, add additionally to it. Part of the conversation that's taking place after the special budget and finance work group are some procurement processes and procedures in light of even the homeless service and some other things and how we pay invoices and all of that. That has been a subject of discussion with the finance department. And there's been a lot of effort and a lot of controls and performance improvement that have been instituted by the director that I thought would be good for the general public to hear that. And so we were in conversation about having a presentation specifically for that along with the budget. So I just want to make a request that when this presentation actually happens, it's not just the budget line, but also everything that's been taking place and all of that. I think it would be good to inform the public of those as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Suara. I'm seeing heads nodding from the Finance Department. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know I can't find them right now, but I know that there are monthly updates that talk about actual versus budget by department, and if someone could talk about where those are and how we find them, that might be useful information that we could access at any time.
Someone from Finance want to take that one?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Mary Jo Wiggins, Finance. And yes, we call them the BAR reports. And they are, if you go to the Finance webpage, you go to accountability reports. So it'll have a page of reports. It'll say accountability, and then they are the budget to actual reports. And yes, they give every department, they give Metro-wide, they have other breakdowns of all the budget to actual each month. And I actually can send the link. How about that?
Thank you. Further questions? Not all in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? We recommend approval, 8 in favor, none against, 0 not voting. Next up is number 25, RS 2025-1711, a resolution urging the Office of Homeless Services to allocate funding to ensure that no Nashvillians lose their permanent housing due to the changes in the federal continuum of care funding priorities. Sponsors Welsh, Huffman, and Evans. Can I get a motion? I have a motion and a second. Councilmember Welsh, I'll go to you as the primary sponsor.
Thank you, Chair. This resolution is basically simply requesting that OHS put together a plan to present to council by the beginning of March, working with the HPC so that we know how we are going to keep people housed here in Nashville. In 2024, HUD made allocations for fiscal year 24 and 25 to house people, and we got about 11.8 million. Recently, HUD rescinded that 2-year funding plan and put out a NOFO, or a notice of funding opportunity, that essentially would limit the amount of money we could use from the 11.8 million we got essentially for permanent housing to 30% of that amount. A lawsuit has been filed against HUD for doing this, and Nashville is included in that. And so they have rescinded the NOFO, but they have not reinstated that 2-year funding cycle. So we really don't know when and if we're going to be getting any more money from HUD right now.
And the original $4.4 million that my resolution references was basically meant for unhoused people at the time, new money to get people who currently were unhoused into housing. And what this resolution does basically is gives OHS permission to use that Metro money to keep people who are already in housing, making sure that they can keep their housing through all of this funding disarray. And it asks that the OHS work with the HPC, which is the governing body of the COC, that each COC agency has a direct contract with HUD and controls those dollars, and they are all being affected by these funding cuts. So I think it's good for us to have a very comprehensive and transparent plan in place with the HPC, seeing what we can do using these Metro dollars to see how we can keep all of these people housed, and focus on people who are housed so that we don't have people losing houses as we're trying to put new people in, as we're closing down encampments or doing anything else. I think it's really important that we keep the people who are already housed in housing, and this resolution is simply asking OHS to work with the HPC and come up with that plan and bring it to us so that we know what's going on, and so we can hit the ground running whenever we find out what the feds are actually going to do with the rest of our funding. So I ask my colleagues to please support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Welsh. Councilmember Suara.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I rise in support of the resolution. It's not saying specifically what the OHS will do, but it's asking for a plan of what should be done. When you have lost wages, lost funding, anytime that you don't have money that you're expecting, it's good to rebudget and reallocate and figure out how do we keep the roof on the house and keep things going. That's basically what this is doing. Now, if the federal government comes back and give the money back, it's a different conversation entirely. But in the absence of that, and there's a possibility that we might lose that, what is our contingency plan? What are we going to do to make sure that people don't lose their home? And that's what this resolution is doing. And with that, I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Suara. Further comments? Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there anyone from OHS that could comment on their ability to do this?
You were recognized, ma'am.
Yes, hi, I'm Allison Cantley from the Office of Homeless Services. Demetrius is passing out a little bit more information for y'all to answer some questions and just give you a little bit more data to sort of paint the picture for you. So yes, HUD issued a notice of funding opportunity that announced really significant changes to the Continuum of Care program this year. Metro, I think, has taken some really robust steps to handle this, including signing on to the lawsuit. They had their first hearing last Monday. Less than an hour before the hearing, HUD rescinded that NOFO. So that NOFO is no longer in effect. But HUD did inform everyone last Friday that they are going to reissue a new NOFO. And then the court case obviously is ongoing. This has signaled really a massive shift, not just for Nashville, for literally every area of the country. In most areas of the country, the majority of the funding that serve unhoused folks comes from this program. So this has really ignited like a large shift. So this is not, this is a local concern, obviously, but this is a big federal concern. And I think Metro is, playing a really robust part in being part of that lawsuit. So, of course, as soon as we learn more about the new NOFO that's going to be issued, we will share that with y'all. Obviously, the Homelessness Planning Council is the governing body for the Continuum of Care, and they're really the locally recognized planning body to make decisions. And I also just want to point out that the $11.8 million in funding that Nashville was awarded, it was not awarded to Metro. It was awarded to all these different, there are 10 agencies that are funded. Metro is one of them, but the vast majority of the funding goes to these other 9 agencies. We're one of the smaller grantees, and they each have start dates throughout the year, right? So some of those programs will end earlier in the year. Most of them don't end until, June 30 or later. There's really only 3 programs that end before that. OHS, we have been holding contingency planning. We began that process in February. And so we've been meeting with all of the funded agencies. When this last NOFO was issued, we started having weekly meetings. We're about to have, I think, our 5th weekly NOFO meeting tomorrow. All of those local agencies submitted to us in the last week or two their contingency plans for how they, sort of plan to move forward if this funding doesn't come through. Again, the lawsuit is ongoing though, so that there absolutely could be relief in that way. And HUD still has the option, Congress still has the option to do what they previously said that they were going to do, which is just sort of reissue automatic renewals. But I give all of that context just to say that we were very fortunate that Metro Council allocated an additional $4.4 million to us last year. That was additional funding, which is great because we know that the need in the city is huge and is not, being met. That additional funding was meant primarily for two things. One was to fund the Strobel House, right, which is the city's flagship permanent supportive housing project, the first Metro funded one. They serve 90 people who previously experienced homelessness, who are disabled, who were very, very difficult to serve. And so, $2 million of the funding was obligated towards that. The other $2.4 million was obligated towards rental assistance that were meant to quickly house people, reduce their length of time experiencing homelessness, and really put them on a sustainable path forward. We've already started utilizing those funds. So there are folks that are being housed currently right now that are in housing, that their rental assistance is being paid from those funds. I think we have 6 more households that are moving in this week, next week at the latest, with those funds. So I think we all recognize, right, that the project at Strobel is really, really valuable. All the people that are currently being housed and that will be housed with the other pot of money is really valuable. And obviously, we don't want anyone to lose their permanent housing. We don't want anyone to return to homelessness. But unfortunately, if this funding were to be, diverted elsewhere, the folks that are currently being supported by it, they would lose their housing. And it is very likely that most, if not all of them, would return to homelessness. The folks at Strobel, many of them experienced homelessness for years and years and years and years, have never, this was their first apartment they've ever had. And so if this funding is diverted, all the people being supported by those two projects would lose housing. And I mean, I don't mean to downplay certainly that this is a huge issue with HUD. It is, but unfortunately we're talking about 2 OHS programs with a pot of funding that's just not going to be enough to mitigate the COC funding, which is well over twice that amount.
Councilmember Allen.
Thank you. That's helpful context.
Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I was tracking until the very end, so I just have some clarifying questions. So are we saying that of the $4.4 million that OHS received, my understanding was that two went to Strobel and then 2.4 went to rapid rehousing, and that people that are currently benefiting from that rapid rehousing, that funding is coming from that 2.4 million. Is that correct, Chair? Can you call on OHS to see if that's correct?
Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
Yes, that's correct. Some folks are currently, ongoing month to month getting that rental assistance from that fund.
Okay, thank you. So, this is a non-binding resolution, so it's just asking you all to come up with a plan. So I guess, does it hurt anything by passing this, asking y'all to I guess go on record with what the plan would be? That's my first question. And then my second question is Section 2C, where it says to support nonprofits to temporarily fund their rapid rehousing programs. Do you all, are y'all already funding nonprofits? Would this change anything in the structure of what y'all are already doing? I support the resolution. I also want to make sure that it's not any unintended consequences of causing harm, but I also want to acknowledge that this is a non-binding resolution, so it is just an ask, so it is not changing what we're already doing. So I think it's just saying that this is the intent of the council. So if there is a reason why this is particularly harmful, then I would like to understand it before I vote.
You're recognized.
Yes, absolutely. So of the agencies that receive COC funding, our office already provides funding in some way or another to over half of them. Some of the agencies get multiple grants from our office. So agencies like Park Center, the contributor, they get multiple grants from our office. So I want to make sure that that's clear that we're supporting them already. You know, I would argue that, yes, it would cause a lot of harm to these folks that have finally been stably housed, because this would introduce instability into their situation and can cause more trauma. And I think Metro should really take great care to not do that. And I think also in a situation like that, if we were to take funds from one pot of funding, that is housing unhoused folks, to put it in another pot of funding to house unhoused folks, we're kind of creating like a robbing Peter to pay Paul situation that's just not sustainable. So like what we've been doing is there are 3 agencies, like I said, that their projects end early in the year. We've been meeting with them very regularly to talk through how can we support you. We're scrubbing through local dollars, philanthropic dollars, other federal funds besides HUD. I mean, we're working with them extremely closely to make sure that their projects don't stop. But again, diverting these funds away from their current purpose would put the currently funded, currently housed people in jeopardy.
Thank you. Director Darby, a non-binding resolution does not divert funds. Is that correct?
No, the non-binding resolution would be, I believe this one is requesting a plan to be delivered to the council as to how they intend to address these situations, potentially using these funds.
Okay, thank you. And my computer just died, so I'm pulling this resolution up from my phone because I have a specific question about the resolution. Can OHS tell us if they will be able to have a plan created? If this passes, can they have the plan created by the date in March 2026? Are there any concerns with that date?
So,
go ahead, you're recommending.
I'm so sorry. Okay. So one thing that I would say is that we created an impact report when we first started becoming aware of these issues with HUD. You should have just got a copy of it. It came from March of this year. We're creating a new impact report with more updated numbers because this one was from March, but it shows you how many people are supported, how many landlords are recipients of this funding, really what the impact of the overall COC funding is. And I just wanted to point that out because we're working with the agencies right now to create an updated one. As I said, in the last week or two, they've sent us more updated numbers, their contingency plans, that sort of thing. So like I said, we've been in ongoing contingency plans with all of the agencies, but you know, in section 2 of this, where it talks about creating a plan to utilize our budget to make sure that these folks that are in these other programs stay housed. I mean, I think it's just the same concern of like a plan for how we would reallocate our dollars to go to other projects kind of necessarily creates an issue for the people that are already in those projects. I hope that answered your question.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair. One more question and then I'll wrap it up. So with the reports that y'all are currently creating, I guess I would like to hear from the sponsor on if the reports that they are already creating, does that fulfill what the sponsor is requesting? And I want to kind of give the context to that. If they're already doing the reports, I don't see any harm in us going on record saying, please do the report that you're already doing. I don't see the harm in that. As I was reading the resolution from my phone died. So maybe I missed something. Maybe I'm missing something here. But it seems as though they're already doing it. This would have been great. I appreciate them giving us this information. There's no way to like read all of this and digest it just like right now on the spot. But unless I hear something that is, you know, unless I hear something else in the conversation, I'm likely going to vote yes for this today. I can read over this information before tomorrow. And if any concerns are raised by tomorrow, or if we see that this is already being taken care of, then that may change how I vote tomorrow. But for today, I don't see the harm in asking for a report. Asking for a report does not divert funds. It does not change the way. The report may say we are already giving these funds to these organizations. So the report may not even divert the money. I don't know until we get the report to say what they're going to do. So I would love to hear from the sponsor if what they are reporting on it has the same effect that what the sponsor's asking for.
Thank you, Councilmember Porterfield. Councilmember Welsh.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a lot of the work that OHS is doing, the very good work that they're doing, could in fact be put into a report, and a lot of the things that Ms. Cantwell mentioned could also be put in the report, like how that $2 million is being allocated towards Strobel. This resolution does not divert any funds. It's basically asking that OHS now has permission to use that particularly that $4.4 million to help keep the people who are already housed, not necessarily housing new people, but making sure the people already in housing are taken care of before we start housing other people, so we don't have a revolving door. It doesn't divert any funds. People who are already getting those funds, that's great, that can continue. I would just like to see the plan working with the HPC that's kind of comprehensive and transparent with the COC and whatever, so that we're all on the same page, because the funding cliff that I think we're going to hit very soon with what's happening at the federal level, we need to make sure we can hit the ground running, and we just want to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of how we're going to work together to keep people who are already housed able to stay in their housing. So it's not diverting any funds, it's just asking for a plan as to how that money is being used now, so we know, so everybody across the board knows how we're using those funds to keep people housed.
Councilmember Suara.
All right, I'll keep it short because I don't want to keep repeating what everybody said. But when you look at the resolution, and I think that OHS might thought that this is something that it's not. But when I look at the resolution, when you look at, yes, it talks about 4.4 and there's a lot of citation. But when it talks about what Metro Council wants OHS to do, it's talking about using 4.4 million appropriation designation for permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing. That's what it says in that section 1. If you look at the second page of what you gave me, that is exactly 4.4 million, 2 for permanent and 2.4 for rapid rehousing. So it's basically the same thing. The only thing that is different here again, which is in that section 2, is the plan part of it and making sure that, okay, how is this taking place? You guys are the one deciding how you manage the 2 and the 2.4, but telling us what you're doing and how you do it. That's how I'm reading that. And to go back to it being a non-binary resolution, I want to keep stressing that I don't see where this is telling you to move anything yet. I think the part that I read, I see an agreement between section 1 and this paper that I'm reading is exactly the same thing to me. So section 2 is where I think there's something being asked, and that is the plan to make sure that, you know, as things are changing, everybody's abreast of that plan. So with that, again, I think this ask is necessary and needed, and I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gamble.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate all of this discussion because I, too, wanted some clarification on Section 1 in particular. I appreciate the sponsor's intent for this resolution. I support the resolution as far as asking for a plan as to how to deal with the possible reduction in the federal funding. However, I guess I just need a little bit of clarification because it seems like OHS may need some clarification on Section 1 as well. It would be different if it says Metropolitan Council hereby goes on record as urging the Office of Homeless Services to utilize a $4.4 million appropriation designated for permanent supportive housing and rapid housing. It was designated for that, but they're saying to ensure that no Nashvillians benefiting from these housing programs lose their housing due to changes in the federal continuum of care funding priorities. So just to clarify that basically Section 1 says, I wish the word continue was in here, because if we were saying go on record as urging the Office of Homeless to continue utilizing the $4 million, it kind of suggests that they want it to be redirected to support lost funding from the federal continuum of care. So just clarification on that, because I do, like I said, appreciate and support Section 2 asking for the report, but it sounds like Office of Homeless Services is concerned that we are asking them to utilize that $4.4 million to address the funding, that federal funding deficit, and we just need to be clear that that's not the case.
Is that for the sponsor or for OHS?
For everybody.
For everybody. I'll go to OHS
Director
first.
Darby can ask that answer on the legal end and the sponsor on her end. Thank you.
You recognize me.
Thank you. Yes, I think that really hit the nail on the head. So I want to make it clear that we're talking about sort of two different funding sources, right? The 4.4 million that was allocated to our department, that is Metro funding. What this is referring to is federal continuum of care funding. So the way that I'm reading this is it's saying it's urging our office to utilize the 4.4 Metro funded, those funds, to make sure that no one loses housing due to changes in the COC funding program. These funds are 4.4 million, the Metro funds. The COC program is funded at 11.8 million, right? So those are two different pots. And so sort of necessarily by saying, we want to make sure that this 11.8 is fully funded, we understood that to mean that, as this says, that we are urged to utilize our Metro funding to replace federal funding. And I think that's just, I hope that made things a little bit more clear, because when Councilmember Suara mentioned, on the second page of this, the rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing that it's referring to, those are referring to people that are being served through OHS, through Metro funds. The resolution, as I read it, is referring to people that are served through similar programs, but that are administered by community agencies with COC funds. That may be clear as mud. I'm sorry, I'm trying to, but I think it's just a conflation maybe of two different funding sources.
Councilmember Welsh.
Thank you, Chair. The resolution is not asking that Metro replace any federal funding at all. Ms. Cantwell just mentioned that they're housing 6 new people this week using that 2.4 million. What this is basically asking is for us to focus more on keeping people who are already housed, using the monies that we have to keep them housed. We don't want people who are currently in housing to lose their housing. And if we can use some of those dollars to help some of the other COC agencies shore up their programs to keep their people housed, ultimately that is what we want to do. We do not want to have people losing their housing. That is really what at its root it is. We have this pot of money, basically it's giving you permission to use this money now instead of housing new people who are currently unhoused, to use this money to keep people we have already housed in that housing, and working with some of the COC agencies who might have programs who, like, for example, one of the programs is going to be losing their money at the end of January. If they need an infusion of money to keep some of their families housed, we want them, OHS, to understand that we support that. You can use that money to help keep those people in Nashville funded. So this is not saying that we're replacing federal funding. There's absolutely no way we could replace federal funding. This is really specifically speaking about that 4.4 million in new funding that we gave OHS in the last budget cycle.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilmember Webb.
I want to ask her a question, if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
How much of the 11.8 have y'all gotten?
Great question. So HUD is always operating in 3 different years at any given time. So that was the application from 2024. They announced the awards in 2025. And those awarded amounts would go to projects that begin at some point in 2026. So the 11.5 million, we have been told that we received that award, but no project has actually received it yet. And they won't until, what would be the beginning of their project, which would be next year.
So you've received no money from the federal government on 11.8. OHS hasn't. I'm going to stand in support of this because I think, as somebody that's, that I'm very involved with my homeless in my area, and I love getting people housed. And I think with the federal government changing this program, we as a body need to know what's going to be hitting us next year, to keep these people housed. And the only way we know that is with the data that OHS can provide us. I don't think Jenny's trying to tell you what to put in the report. I think she's just asking for a report. If we're using $100,000 to house 50 people for a certain amount of time, we want that in the report so we know what's coming down the pipeline if the federal government does do away with the whole program. So I'm going to support this. I think we need this data for now and for the future.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to Councilmember Porterfield one more time, and then we'll wrap this up because we're in danger of losing our quorum, and we have a couple more items we need to act on. Councilmember Porterfield. Sorry, go ahead.
All good. Thank you, Vice Chair. My question is to OHS. Is there anyone that's being well, never mind. I think my question was just answered. I was about to ask, is there anyone being housed by the 11.8 that would lose housing if the federal government defunds this program for our unhoused neighbors? But it sounds like the 11.8 has not provided any housing as of yet. Can I get a confirmation of that from OHS?
You're recognized, ma'am.
Yeah, so HUD funding right now is finishing up sort of the previous round of funding, and the 11.8 is meant to fund the next round that they all start on different dates, as you can see on your form, but yes, they're next year.
So no one that is currently housed at this moment is going to lose housing from the federal government defunding this program if they defund the program?
They will next year because the majority of the program funds renewals. So those are folks that were housed in the last, year-ish who would have been renewed in the next year-ish.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. After reading back over the amendment again, Councilmember Allen has a physical copy over there, a paper copy. So we went old school and looked at it. It actually stated, can I see that, Councilmember? It said that it was utilized. It's asking for an explanation of how they are utilizing their budget. So it's not saying that they have to reallocate anything with their budget. It's just asking for the explanation of how they're utilizing the budget and talking about the permanent supportive housing, which is Strobel, talking about funding nonprofits, which they've already said that they're going to do, and talking about how we're going to keep people housed. Thank you. So, and it says specifically that it's explained its plans to utilize a budget to ensure these things. So this is not, they don't have to change anything. This is just asking them to explain how they're going to use that money. So I'm going to stand in support, and I'm done talking about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Porterfield. All right, if there are no more hands, we will move to a vote. All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? One not voting. So we recommend approval, 6 in favor, none against, 1 not voting. Next is item number 26, which is a late filed resolution by Chair Toombs, and I will sign on as well. A resolution approving Amendment 1 and special conditions related to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Office of Family Safety to fund fatality review team staffing positions to help manage the multidisciplinary needs of its clients. Can I get a motion? Second? I have a motion and a second. Is there anyone from the Office of Family Safety that can tell us about this? Doesn't look like it. Director Darby, you want to give it a shot?
This is a grant that's going to enable the Office of Family Safety to receive funding to support positions in their office in an ongoing manner.
Any discussion? Councilmember Suara.
We know the reason why it was late filed. Is there like a deadline looming or something?
Director Darby.
Yes, there is a deadline looming. I don't know what the deadline is, but there's a deadline looming.
I'm hearing end of the year from the administration table. Further comments? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? All right, recommend approval, 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. I think we've just got 2 more, folks. Number 27, BL 2025-1118, an ordinance approving a license and lease agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County and Powers Management, LLC, for use of space located at 222 25th Avenue North, Nashville, Tennessee 37203. Sponsors Taylor, Toombs, Horton, Vo, and Hill. Can I get a motion? Motion and a second. Let's see. Councilman Taylor is here, and I will go to him first if I can find him. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you. Can I have someone move the amendment, please?
So motion and a second. You're recognized on the amendment.
The amendment will codify language in both the recital of the legislation as well as add an Exhibit D that will honor legacy groups to be able to continue using the space and at a similar accessibility, as well as continue using the space with a similar payment, or at least the same payment until July 2027. And then that payment can't increase no more than 3% for the lifetime of the policy year over year.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on the amendment? Councilmember Suara first, and then Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make two comments on the amendment, and then I'll comment on the bill later after the amendment. And the first comment is that I want to stress that, because I just got another email today talking about the legacy group and the people that are in a structured programs, hockey program and skating program. One of the things that this amendment also does is that it takes into action public access and making sure that people that are not in organized groups also have access to these spaces. So making sure that there's a time designated for people to use it, I think is very important, and that answers one of those questions. The other thing that I wanted to highlight from the last committee communication that we have, people are worried about the rates and all of that. I just wanted to lift up that the rate doesn't change until 2027, but after 2027, it actually says it can increase up to 3% annually until the end of the lease. The lease does not end until 2049. That's 24 years. And so people would not have to worry about it increasing so much in the near future. It's going to be till the end of the lease. The lease is 2049, and I wanted to at least leave that up for people that are asking the question that are worried about that. And with that, I support the amendment.
Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Quick question for the sponsor. We heard from two individuals about, I guess, some competing interests about access to the facility. Does this amendment allow both entities to access the facility?
Councilman Taylor.
Long question, long answer. But I'll make
yes or no is okay.
It's okay. You don't want all the details.
No,
but
I don't want the details. Just a yes or no is fine.
So yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. There's more to it.
Further questions? All right, if not, we'll take a vote on amendment number 1. All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? All right, recommend approval, 7 against, 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Can we get a motion on the bill as amended? Motion and a second. Discussion on the bill as amended. Councilmember Suara.
Thank you. I just wanted to lift up a couple of things because we're in budget. And part of what I'd ask for is that Ms. Amanda Dentimoy had done a summary for me, and I think it's very important for us to be able to have that on record. The current management that we have right now, where Parks is doing it, even though we have information on the money that is being made, we really don't have a way to check what we're spending. But we know the biggest part of this is the major renovation that is happening. So I wanted to point out some of the financial gain to Metro with this contract. There will be an investment of, capital investment of about 100 million with 30 million immediately. Metro is going to retain ownership of these facilities even after the renovation is taking place. The Predators have agreed to actually look at employees, Metro employees, and how they can be intake, or at least give employee with Predators. The repairs and maintenance of this facility stays with the Predators, and they will be responsible for fixing it. A part that I like most about it is also that is also the concept of revenue sharing, wherein that the operating revenue, the Predators will keep the first 500,000, but after that there's a 75% sharing with Metro. I think all of this is very important because what we have now is that we do have a loss. I don't know how this will come out, but we do know that we're not putting all that investment into it, and that's very important. And I want to reiterate the part that is very important to me, other than the maintenance and the financial gain, is that legacy access as well as the community access. So looking at all of that in total, I think I want to at least point all of those out in looking at the contract, and to say that it's a good start, especially when community members continue to use it, especially when community members that are paying are not paying any more than they're paying now, and Metro does not have to put out all that money up front. So with that, again, speaking in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Suara. Further comments? If not, we'll go to a vote on the bill as amended. All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Recommend approval, 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. And our last item is number 28, BL 2025-1150, an ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government's execution and delivery of a development agreement and ground lease agreement with Tennessee Performing Arts Center Management Corporation, a campus operations and use agreement, and other documents and agreements relating to the development of a performing arts facility on a portion of the East Bank Stadium campus. Sponsors Coupin, Toombs, Horton, Johnson, Hill, Huffman, and Stiles. Can I get a motion? I have a motion. Is there a second? I have a second, and I see we have our primary sponsor with us. I'll go to Councilmember Coupin. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Excited for this lease bringing TPAC to the East Bank. We had a Section 230 meeting on December 4th and a East Bank ad hoc meeting on the 11th. So if folks want to get more information, check out those recordings. I also have an amendment that I hope the committee will move and support. One of the big conversations that came up was the access to the pedestrian bridge. So this amendment would amend the recitals just to recodify Metro's commitment to keeping the pedestrian bridge open. Wasiato Park is also in the vicinity of the construction site, so making sure that that stays open. And then housekeeping, fixing the December 3rd date on the current document to make it December 4th, which is the correct date. So would love the committee's support.
It's a motion and a second on Amendment 1. Any discussion? Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you. Can we get something from the administration and or Metro Legal that confirms that this amendment keeps the pedestrian bridge open?
Legal, you're recognized.
Tom Cross from Metro Legal. This is, I think it's just more of an expression of a commitment than a binding obligation to TPAC.
So TPAC could still close the pedestrian bridge?
TPAC is not going to be closing the pedestrian bridge. This is Metro's commitment. It's expressed by Councilmember Coupin that the bridge is going to stay open, which was the concept in the MOU. Now, TPAC is not, I don't want to get too far away from your question, but in the MOU that council approved earlier in the year, TPAC did have some obligations with respect to construction of the bridge. They no longer have those obligations. Those are on Metro now.
Thank you for reminding me of that. I'm trying to pull up my notes here from my conversation with them. Let me ask this in a different way. If the pedestrian bridge gets shut down, who would be responsible? What entity will be responsible for shutting down the pedestrian bridge?
I'm sorry,
and that's
you're
illegal.
All of the obligations with respect to construction of the bridge are on Metro now.
Okay. Does this amendment ensure that Metro is not going to shut down the pedestrian bridge?
It does not have that effect. It's an expression of the council's commitment. And I'm looking at Councilmember Coupin to make sure that I am capturing the spirit of what you want to do here.
Okay.
Councilmember Porterfield, I think Councilmember Coupin wanted to respond to that as well.
All right.
You're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you to my colleague for the question. It's something that's really important to us, and I probably could have gone into more details trying to be brief, just given the time. So in multiple meetings, Masami Tyson, the Chief of Staff for Mayor O'Connell, and others had cited continued commitments to keeping the bridge open with the deal. TPAC no longer has responsibility for the bridge. It is part of the deal. There's a Metro obligation to construct an alleyway and raise the bridge and do some things with it. But the bridge construction no longer is part of what TPAC is going to be doing. So that does fall on the Metro side of the fence. Some were kind of content with the verbal commitment, but just to further codify it and to go on the record as a council saying this is important to us, I put it in the recital. It's not in the MOU, so my understanding is it wouldn't be legally binding or legally enforceable, but effectively we'd be binding ourselves anyway. So there may be other mechanisms to bind the Metro government to itself. But this lease with TPAC, there wouldn't be a mechanism forcing Metro to keep the bridge open, but it would be our expressed intent going on record, as well as the Chief of Staff going on record as well.
Thank you for that. My question is, I guess, to Metro Legal or Director Darby, how can we get it in writing that Metro is not going to shut down the pedestrian bridge? During that the bridge will be open during the construction process. Thank you for saying that, Councilmember Allen.
You're recognized.
Tom Cross again. The council acts through its legislation, and I suppose you could adopt an ordinance that, if the mayor signed it, would make that commitment in a binding way. This is probably not the right vehicle for it, since you're being asked to approve an agreement with TPAC. And I'm sure TPAC would like to see the bridge remain open too, but it's not really their business to enforce a Metro's commitment to its citizens that the bridge is going to remain open.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I understand the obligation is no longer on TPAC. I just don't want to, I don't want there to be any misunderstanding, because saying that the Metro Council wants to keep the bridge open is not the same thing as saying that Metro government will keep the bridge open. So I think we need to find a better mechanism. So that's question number one. Question number two, I believe I got this answered by Director Darby or Special Counsel Darby, but I want to make sure that we have it on the record as well. One of the concerns that came up was around the parking. We have an agreement. My understanding is that our agreement with the Titans is that we have to maintain 2,000 parking spots, and TPAC is planning on doing their staging in the Metro, in that parking area. So my question to them was, in the event that their staging causes us to go below the 2,000 spots that we're obligated to maintain, what then happens? So the verbal agreement that TPAC said was that they would just find another staging area, or if there was a cost associated, they would pay the cost, but they would likely just find another staging area. But I don't see that anywhere in writing. So Director Darby, can you kind of explain what happens with that?
Director Darby.
I believe according to the TPAC contract, they are allowed to use spaces that Metro owns to the extent that there's not already a prior obligation for those spaces for the Titans. So if they need to use spaces at the same time the Titans are using spaces, they would have to find other spaces.
Okay, thank you. But that is for sure, right? I just don't want the obligation to come back on Metro that we are having to do something differently. So that is
yes,
for sure. Okay, thank you. And then my last question was around the lease is for 35 years with the 2 30-year extensions, and I just wanted clarity around if those extensions will have to come back before the council for approval, or what is the process for those 2 approvals. And I know, Director Darby, I know we talked about this through email, but I just want to get that on the record because those were some of the questions that kind of came up.
Director Darby.
According to the agreement, the extensions do not have to come back to the council if they have the same terms. If the terms are changed, then they would need to come back to council for approval.
Okay, thank you. I am still thinking through this. I think I'm going to abstain today and do a little bit more research and make a determination, ideally by the meeting tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? I think we need to tap dance for a moment until we have a quorum back to take a vote. Any questions? Anyone? Yes, sir, we are. Councilmember Porterfield.
Point of order, could we hear about the other amendments while we are waiting to have quorum to vote?
Director Darby.
We're in the committee right now, so the rules are a little more lax.
Fluid,
and
yeah.
A little fluid. So if the committee wants to go that route, then the committee can go that route.
I believe it's at the will of the chair.
We're
Oh, we got quorum.
Looks like it's a moot point. We got a quorum again. All right, all in favor of Amendment 1, say aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? 6 in favor, 0 against, 1 not voting. We recommend approval. Can I get a motion on the bill as amended? Motion and a second. We have amendment number 2 by Councilman Parker. Can I get a motion? We have a motion and a second. Councilman Parker, you are recognized on amendment 2.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me, even though I'm not on this committee. In the agreement, one of Metro's primary responsibilities is to provide for alleyway access. If you know anything about event production, that's very, very important to a venue such as what's going to be constructed here. In the agreement as filed, there was some really, really specific, detailed, and prescriptive language about how that alleyway access would work, exactly how it would be and how it would work. What this amendment does is just offers a little bit of flexibility for how we provide that alleyway access. So rather than being entirely prescriptive of exactly where it would go and exactly how it would work, there'd be a little bit of flexibility as plans are finalized and come online to actually make sure that we're delivering that access. And as I understand it, all the folks who've looked at this believe that we're still heading in the direction of what was prescribed in the original agreement, but it's so prescriptive that I think it would benefit us to have some potential flexibility in there, and that's what this amendment does.
Thank you, Councilman Parker. Based on the conversation we had in transportation earlier, I'm supporting this amendment tonight, pending hearing back from the parties to make sure we're not causing any issues by amending an agreement that's already been agreed upon. Any comments from the committee? All right, if not, we'll take a vote. All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? I recommend approval. 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 not voting. Can I get a motion on the bill as amended? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the bill as amended? If not, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? 6 in favor, 0 against, 1 not voting. You recommend approval. We have no further business. Thanks for sticking with us. We are adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.